So now that you have an understanding of the different types of lit-based essays, it's time to dive into thesis statements. You need a good solid thesis statement before you can build out the rest of your essay. So what is a thesis statement? Well, thesis statements are provable. They argue your analytical idea. So the analysis that you did of the text, how can you boil it down to a solid statement, one argumentative idea? The thesis statement will prove your point. What's your point about the short story that you read? What do you think is the main idea? And thesis statements are assertive, organized, and succinct. You're only taking as many words as necessary to say what you need to say about your analytical idea. The thesis statement also serves as your purpose for writing. You need a good solid thesis statement to organize the rest of your essay. Once you have that thesis statement down, the rest is a piece of cake. So the thesis statement must be arguable about that analytical idea. So it is an example of something that's not a thesis statement is the dungeon master is the leader of the game. That's pretty explicit in the text. There's nothing really to prove there. However, the dungeon master uses his leadership position with the group to mask his depression is better, but it still needs some work. There's an analytical idea there. This is not explicitly stated in the text. We had to put together some details, make some connections to unlock some meaning about the dungeon master there. So this idea in your thesis statement, it should state what you will prove. Again, the dungeon master is the leader of the game. There's nothing to prove there. That's pretty explicit. But saying that he uses his leadership position with the group to mask his depression, that's provable. It's something that's analytical. So looking for those details where he uses the position to mask his true depression, you can think of areas in the text that we could use to prove that, but it's still an analytical idea. So your thesis statement must provide the transition from your intro, your introduction, to your body paragraphs. It's going to give an overview to the reader of what to expect in the rest of the essay. It should leap out at your reader and be the wow statement. Your reader should be really impressed with your idea, your analytical idea, rather than a statement of fact from the text. So this is a working thesis that I came up with about the short story, The Dungeon Master. While the Sam Lip site seems to suggest that the narrator in The Dungeon Master experiences normal adolescent struggles, his association with the group proves his suffering goes much deeper, further indicating he is as troubled as the other. This is never stated explicitly in the text, and we have to put a lot of details together in the text to come up with this idea that is our own. It's arguable because somebody may have a completely different take on the narrator. The narrator may be normal and has a different reason for playing the game. And I think you could support either very richly with evidence from the text. So in crafting your thesis, you want a dependent-independent clause structure. A dependent clause cannot stand on its own. An independent clause can. An independent clause is a full, complete sentence on its own. A dependent clause is not. This dependent clause that begins your thesis statement augments the independent clause by adding a different additional information. It adds to the richness of your argument. It gives some qualifying information. Good dependent clauses will start with the word because, while, since, through. Those words offer some tension in your thesis statement. They are augmenting that idea. So start your sentence with one of those words for a good thesis statement. You'll notice in ours, we use the word while, and that's the beginning of our dependent clause. While Sam Lip site seems to suggest that the narrator in The Dungeon Master experiences the normal adolescent struggles. Seems to suggest, so we're going to look at that that he is a normal adolescent, or that the author seems to suggest that in some way. What the author is really doing is showing how deep his suffering goes and how that seemingly normal surface is in some ways just a mask. So now that you have an overview of the thesis statements, you are now going to craft your own. What is your provable analytical idea from one of the short stories you read? Remember to follow the dependent-independent clause structure and come up with 2 working thesis statements about the same text. So now really narrowing down about the text you're going to work with. I will come around and approve your thesis statement. I need to approve it before you move any further because this is going to be the foundation for the rest of your essay. Once you have a working thesis statement and it's approved, next up, topic sentences.